So if you want the challenging quote quote super easy airport down in Mexico, Dr. Paul. Okay, Sebastian, morning, welcome. 12 360s? What was happening? They made you do 12 360s.
They were.
Got it. Okay. All right. Got it. We always yield to the Amazon Prime. Okay. Cool.
Next day delivery.
Edwin. Ethan. Ethan. Go ahead.
I say Compton as well.
Yeah.
A lot of traffic. A lot of traffic happening.
Totally. Yep. Agreed. Good. And Zoe.
I like it now. So office equipment, to bring up some training.
Yep. You know, San Bernardino Tower does not have any radar inside of it. They do not have a radar feed. And so it's literally like the controller in the tower with binoculars in their eyeballs, like old school. So that's why San Bernardino can often get like, okay, 12 360, that's excessive, 12 360. But, you know, that's why also you can't get flight following from San Bernardino Tower. They just don't have the equipment. I'm told they're trying to upgrade it, but we'll see. So even though it's a Delta tower, you gotta be on your game as we heard. Nathan. Least favorite or most challenging?
I think we're.
Yeah. Long Beach, the Delta, that could be a Charlie in other parts of the world, right? A lot happening. Cool, thank you, bro.
Well, that was good in the bag, but like whenever I go there, people the towers always just talking really fast. So
Where's that?
and that was good. Bakersfield.
Oh, in Bakersfield. Oh, in Meadows, in Bakersfield. Nice. We'll be looking at Meadowsfield a lot week 4, some of their approaches and looking at that. Nice. Oh. Sugar, welcome to class. Least favorite or most challenging airport?
Least favorite. I mean, Hawthorne is also challenging, like you said, because it doesn't have the radar, but it is a Delta. I went to Hawthorne actually as my second airport. Right there around the Bravo, and you just take it straight in. Just don't go anymore right, anymore north. It's fine. Yeah, but I also agree with Long Beach. I was coming in, 3 weeks off my training, into my training, and we were coming in from the Bay, and my instructor was like, okay, you need to get on downwind right there at Signal Hill. And I drove for Signal Hill.
Yeah.
I really would like you to be more this way. And the tower got up. You need to be more this way because as we're approaching 30, these people are coming in and you're too far for the Bay, you're getting into that pushback. So
I'll let you know.
they let me know.
I'll let you know. Cool. Stuart.
I don't really have like a least favorite, but San Bernardino is the only tower that's like not going to enter their airspace.
Interesting.
I was on a solo and I was only allowed to land there or Torrance.
Yeah.
And they had a fire like to the east, probably like a couple of like 50 miles or whatever. But
So there was a lot of firefighting.
just
Forest Service firefighting base there. Used to be. Okay.
So then I just didn't get across country that day. So I just fly back to Torrance.
Darn. Okay. That does that. That's that. Nani. Why?
The times I've been there's been animals on
Animals? What kind of animals?
some dog.
Okay. Coyote, dog looking thing. Cool. Amazing. I find Compton extraordinarily challenging, both and as an instructor, right? It's just a lot going on there all the time. You got to be on your game and got to have like one brain cell in traffic awareness, one brain cell in like what I'm actually doing to control the airplane, one brain cell in like what's happening with that random helicopter that somebody mentioned that who knows what they're doing. But it's a great training opportunity because when we get to practice, all that task saturation, as well as, in Southern California, we don't have as many pilot control fields as some other parts of the country. And so we get the opportunity to make those traffic calls and do all that. I'd say Compton. Sweet. All right, let's turn to our Zoom folks. Balvir, introduce yourself, name, and least favorite or most challenging airport. Oh, I have to let you unmute. Hang on. Allowed to talk. There you go. Now you should be able to unmute.
Howdy guys, good morning. Belvere, got my private. My home airport is Visalia, K Victor India Sierra. Visalia can be actually pretty challenging. It's a lot of farmland, and then all of a sudden you hit asphalt, and you get so much thermals and updrafts out of nowhere, and not so much animals, but the thermals will mess with you just as you're on final and you're about to touch down. And next thing you know, you're just up 30 to 40 feet, and you're like, wow, okay, I'll probably go around now. Um,
Nice. Awesome. Thanks, Valdir. Eduardo,
What was the question?
your least favorite or most challenging airport?
Least favorite. I'd have to say Compton. Compton's probably my
Reasons or
least
the same
favorite also,
reasons?
just because of traffic awareness and just trying to navigate it sometimes, especially when it's busy.
Yep, I like it. Okay, cool. All right, welcome everybody again. We're just trying to get to know each other still, and names and some a little background information. Here's the warm up. I'm going to give you 60 seconds in pairs just to review this warm up, and then I'm going to call in a couple people to explain. This is our review from yesterday. So pair, 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 pair. 60 seconds up. Larry, I put you on.
Yes, great. Actually, you're going to stay there in the, yeah. You're going out west, what's your best flight to go out to be either? Not sure. But the first two. Yeah. Yeah, I think it might be. Looking at the body really on the wall, but not the time. I think I'll take it. Yeah. Might be. I was. Not January. Two dash and on there. I'm not sure about that. I think there's.
All right, team, let's come back together. So what is the actual orientation of this airplane? That's my first question to you. What is the actual orientation of this airplane? Nathan, what do you think? So Nathan says straight level. Anybody have a different opinion of what the actual orientation of this airplane is? Devin, what's the orientation of this airplane in your opinion?
Climbing right turn.
Climbing right turn. Why?
Where you have your attitude indicator suggesting less significant roll to the right, and then your directional gyro suggesting a right turn.
Okay, so let's talk about the DG here, right? And this is lifted literally straight from the testing supplement for the written, folks. So like this is, you could literally have this on your written. When this arrow for the DG, the directional gyro, is pointing to the left, remember, it's not the airplane that moves on this instrument, it's the card behind it. So imagine that compass card, that's what's shifting counterclockwise. So it's indicating an increase in our heading number, which would be a right turn. Just want to make, especially for our friends who are not familiar with six-pack life, right? Okay, good. So you're saying climbing right turn. I get the right turn. How do you know it's climbing?
Our altimeter is rising.
Altimeter is rising. How else? What other instrument could give us a clue that we might be climbing?
The VSI as well.
The VSI as well. Cool. What's happening here with our airspeed indicator? Larry, what's happening with the airspeed indicator? What's it indicating to us? Any movement, any change? Cool. So what we're seeing here is a difference. We've got a problem, right? Nathan's like, hey, the turn coordinator is level. And Devin's like, but the DG, the directional gyro, and the attitude indicator, they're all indicating a right turn. And then we've got our altimeter and our PSI showing us a climbing right turn. What gives? So that's then the real question here, right? How do we decide which one to agree, which ones we think are in agreement, and which one, using our logic as pilots, might be having a problem? Moon, what do you think about that? How do we decide which one's right? Team Nathan or Team Devin?
Oh, you.
How do you know? How do you know? You've got a disagreement in your instruments. So how do you decide?
If there's a disagreement.
Yeah, yeah.
Depends on which ones. So let's say we're gaining the airspeed, but your timing.
Well, airspeed's constant. No change in airspeed.
Just this one?
Yeah, this one.
Well,
Say in this situation, how do you know? We've got a disconnect, right? Nathan's identified, hey, this turn coordinator says we're straight and level. Or not, maybe, but we're at least level. We're not turning. These instruments indicate a turn, right? These instruments indicate a climb. What gives? How do you decide?
I would say whatever the bigger numbers. So there's 4 instruments that telling one thing, one instrument telling the other.
Cool. Okay, so that's not a bad idea, right? I literally have these 2 that agree and one that doesn't. Majority wins. What else? Well,
I guess also indirectly, even though it looks like the turn slip indicator is working or this airplane isn't, the ball is still showing that you're yawing. So if you were in a right turn and you didn't put in enough rotor, that's when you can see it. Well,
okay, we've got a little clue there. Good. There's one more thing here that we could be thinking about, Larry.
So the TC, the turn coordinator is powered by the electrical.
Good.
And all the other 4 instruments agree with each other. So I would do powered and level it out before going, making lightning changes maybe to the left to see if the TC works. But yeah, I would do power.
So this is Larry's systems knowledge coming into play, right? This is why we study systems, so that we can then add that into our thought process when we have failure, right? You knew that the turn coordinator is powered by an electric gyro, right? The gyro is electric, but the attitude indicator and the directional gyro, typically an engine-driven vacuum pump, right? We don't have the POH for this fake airplane, but typically that's how it is, right? So that would make sense then. Hey, this one we know is run by a different system, so we'll use that systems knowledge to help troubleshoot what's going wrong. Does that make sense? We've got a couple of clues. Step 1, right? We do our instrument cross check, right? Hey, that's weird. We see all these things. 2, we do the interpretation. We have a disagreement. 3, you got to decide what to do about it. We're going to talk more about emergencies and instrument failures today. That's one of our topics. But we're starting to get into how the systems knowledge can really come into play during failures and weird stuff, especially with our instruments. So in this case, we're in a constant rate climbing right turn with a failure of our electric turn coordinator. Yes. Sure.
Can I also say that since our airspeed is constant and we are climbing,
Yeah.
that leads us to believe we are not in a pitot failure.
Say more about what you mean.
Because if our pitot tube is blocked, we'll be getting an airspeed change with the altitude change.
You're not wrong. But how did we know this was maybe a gyroscopic error and not a pitot-static error? Anybody can answer that. What was the clue that this is a gyroscopic error, not a pitot-static error?
Sure.
Yeah, the disagreement is within the gyroscopic instruments. That's the thing. Could there also be a pitot blockage? Maybe. I mean, the written test here doesn't tell us how is our airspeed changing over time as we climb. We don't know. That's too advanced for that environment. All right, team. Thanks for that warm up. Here's our plan for today. Paul's our special guest. He's going to kick us off here in a minute. Then we're going to talk about IFR communications, how to tune in a VOR and check to make sure you're using the right VOR in the sling. And then we'll do a little bit of emergency review. Tomorrow we'll continue the emergencies as well as risk management. That's tomorrow's content. So if we run a little over today, we'll pick up what we don't get today tomorrow. Sorted.
I was wondering how you knew it's standard rate turn.
Oh, you don't know. You don't know. Yeah. So what could you, if with the turn coordinator messed up, right? How could we get a sense of how much we should be turning if we have to estimate, right, what a standard rate would be? How would you use the attitude indicator, Jacob? You could like pick a bank, right? Like you could say like, well, at this airspeed, typically standard rate is 15 degrees or something like that.
Well, like some formula that you can use, if I figured it out off the top of your head, I forget that. I think it's like 10% of your indicated airspeed plus 7 degrees. Plus 5.
Damn. All right, guys, the back row coming through with the formula. That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, perfect. Okay,
So like 90 knots and 14.
what's that?
90 knots would be 14.
Okay, there we go. Right. And just based on my experience flying out of that jives with me, like 15-ish degrees sounds about right. Oh, nice. Good stuff, team. All right, we're really excited to have you here, Paul. I'm going to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about 141 and flight schedule pro logging. And if you want to introduce yourself, you're welcome to. Also, you were not at orientation on Friday, right? You were in Santa Monica.
I was in Santa Monica for the
Okay.
orientation. Hello, I'm Paul. Who here is new to sling or just starting? So we got 1, 2, 3, 4 who are starting. You came here with your private and you're starting on the instrument. Okay. And everybody else here is who here has had their private check ride and they've got their certificated private pilot now. All right. Good, good. Very good. And who's still waiting on their check ride? All right, good.
Nice. It's a nice.
So very good mix. I'm going to talk a little bit about first 141 and also using the Flight Schedule Pro to kind of track your progress. Let's see. So we here have at Sling, we're certificated as a 141 school. We've got probably around, I'd say 10% of our students going through the 141 program. Most people go through the Part 61 program. They basically are two different ways of getting certificates, but a lot of it is the same. Today, we're just going to talk about the purpose of 141, the differences between 141 and 61, and then talk a little bit about course requirements for 141. And then we'll jump into tracking your progress through Flight Schedule Pro as well. You want to keep an eye on like, hey, how am I doing according to the syllabus? How am I doing according to, say, the hours in my package? And how am I doing with respect to the time I've allotted to get through the program, right? Let's see. So yes, we have a 141 certificate. It's very hard to get. We were like the only flight school in Long Beach Physgo to get a 141 certificate in the last 20 years because the requirements are kind of high. You have to prove that you're a professional school. You have to prove that you have a lot of tracking of your students and how they're going through the program. You have to prove that you're teaching the right things. It's a lot, but we were able to get one. The 141, what the FAA gives out these certificates because we have a strict adherence to the syllabus, and you also have to have successful student outcomes as well. And then they do a lot of oversight of us. We meet with FAA. I'm talking with the FAA probably like 3 or 4 times a week, and they come here at least once a month to do an inspection and take a look at the school. And by the way, at random inspections, they will almost always do a ramp check. So I don't know if you or your friends have ever gotten ramp checks, but they'll go out to the ramp and they'll say, hey, where's your pilot certificate? Have you, like, what's your mission today? What lesson are you doing, like, in the syllabus? They'll ask questions like that, Yeah, the courses we are allowed to teach are private pilot, instrument, commercial pilot, additional category in class. That's multi-engine. flight instructor and flight instructor instruments. We tend to focus on the private and instrument for 141, as well as we're ramping up the additional category in class for the for 141. So what's the purpose of 141? We already have Part 61. Why generate a whole new set of regulations for that? So the idea is that one, it's accelerated flight training, and you adhere more to the building blocks philosophy. The syllabus is FAA approved, and all the stage checks that you do along the way are FAA approved. So what we actually do is we use the 141 syllabus in our Part 61 training, because Part 61 you don't need a syllabus, you just need the experience in the flight training, right, or the proficiency, right, and the written test, the knowledge. So we use that in 61, but we don't adhere to it as strictly as required for 141. So for students, what's the purpose? Why would you want to go 141? One, it's usually more accelerated. It depends on the course. It's fewer hours, definitely, for the instrument rating. And for the private course, I would say that it's more accelerated only because we adhere strictly to the syllabus, and the progress is rigorously tracked. So everybody's looking at how you're moving up, and you'll get like a check-in earlier if you're not necessarily making progress. You can also, if you're an international student, you can get a visa that's sponsored by us. And then certain loans require 141 training. So there are a couple of reasons why a student would want it. For the CFIs, they can provide better training through course adherence. It's not like, the student shows up and says, oh, what are we doing today? Oh, I don't know. Let's do the same as last time. Well, we don't necessarily do that, but because you're following the syllabus, it's like, well, you know what you did last time, this is what you do next time. With that, it's also easier to have other instructors fill in, because the other instructors see your progress as well. And it's easier to track each student if you've got 4 or 5 students, and it looks better on your resume too. You're 141 instructor. That means you can follow rules, and you can submit paperwork on time. For us at Sling, yes, we want to do the structure. We are working on getting examining authority where students don't have to take check rides. Their final progress check will count as the end of course test, which is the same as a check ride. We need a couple more students to go through before we can apply for examining authority. But once we do that, then we can make all the waiting for check rides disappear, because we can do, once you do your final progress check, we can issue a certificate, right? So that's kind of our objective with the 141.
Can I just emphasize, no waiting, and also no Brinks truck full of cash for the people.
Yeah,
Correct?
yeah, exactly.
It's cheaper for you and no waiting.
Yeah. The other thing with that is, if people worry about, oh, is there a check ride failure on your record? There wouldn't be a check ride failure. Okay, so like the way you view the stage checks is like, they're learning experiences looking for holes, and if you miss something on your end of course test or final progress check, you fill in those holes and you do it again. And there's no letter of disapproval out there, right, that the FAA has. We'll have notes in our Flight Schedule Pro database, but that's about it. So if you ever get asked, have you ever failed a check ride? The answer would be no. That being said, if you graduated from 141 and somebody's hiring you, usually they'll ask like, hey, have you ever had any problems with stage checks? They might ask you that, and in which case you answer truthfully, but usually then they still don't even look at it as like I don't know, they don't look at it the same as a check ride failure. Major differences. So currently for 141, we do have a little bit of check ride priority for people who graduate 141. After the final progress check, your check ride's usually scheduled for less than 30 days and often less than 2 weeks. The reason we do it that way is because that final progress check, like you get a graduation certificate from that, and it says, hey, you have to do a check ride within 60 days. To me, that means you have to do a check ride and you have to be able to do a redo of that check ride in case something doesn't go right within that 60 days. Right. So that's why we give the check ride priority to those students. Also, we tend to have better student outcomes. We have a 96% first time pass rate on check rides for 141 students. Fewer hours per certificate, definitely the case with instrument students. I'll show why there. And one of the things that we also get is with instrument students, everybody has to get skills, knowledge, and experience, right? Sometimes with the instrument rating here with 61, we try to push that experience ahead of the skills and knowledge. Well, what happens when you put that experience first? First of all, experience is a hard teacher, very, very hard teacher.
We heard about that in some of the airports we're talking about.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And second of all, if you're trying to get the experience before you get the skills and knowledge, and we do this sometimes with like, oh, we're going to do our commercial cross country while we're still an instrument. Well, you're not necessarily catching and learning the things that you are intended to be learning there. So we try to teach the skills and knowledge, then the experience comes after that. And that way the experience is more like, oh yeah, I read about this before, and then also once we get examining authority, we don't need to have check rides with DPEs. And this part talks about how the check ride, that you don't fail check rides. All right, some other things.
Is that final check done with the DP?
So it's done with once we get examining authority, we don't have it yet. Once we get it, it's done with somebody from Sling, right? A check pilot at Sling. Let's see, somebody raised a hand online. Let's see, do I have to unmute it?
No, you should be able to do it.
Yeah, I
Alright.
have a question about the hour reduction you had mentioned earlier. What is it and what does it, what hours get reduced?
Great question. We're getting to that. So some of the other difference, I put it in table form. So 61, you can move around in the syllabus all you want. Whereas 141, you have pretty strict adherence to the syllabus. On occasion, you can go a little bit out of order, but always within the same stage. You can't jump from one stage to another. You can't like say, oh, you know what? It's a great, beautiful day today. Let's do a cross country when you're like pre-solo. You can't necessarily do that, but it also establishes that you're building up to it, right? You don't necessarily want to use your hours to do cross country when you won't necessarily get all the learning that you would out of that. The hour requirement, so 61, 40 minimum hours, 40 PPL, 50 instrument, 250 total for comm, whereas 141, it's 35 minimum for PPL. Tell you the truth, we never see anybody in 35 at PPL. We don't see people 40 at PPL. Usually we'll see them at like, in the 70s or something like that. 35 instrument rating. This we do see for 141. We see people maybe around 40 hours for instrument rating. And then 120 in the course in commercial. Let's see. Yeah, one interesting thing about the commercial, it's got to be, quote, in the course. So once you enroll in commercial, that's when the hour meter starts counting for 120. So if you get to your instrument rating at, let's say, 150 hours, and then you enroll in the commercial course, that means you're gonna be at 270 hours before you finish the part 141 commercial. So it might be better to go and take a check ride part 61. You can enroll in the commercial 141 course, and then you can get to like 200 hours and say, no, there's no way I'm gonna make this, but you're still following the building blocks, and just say, I'm gonna jump out and take a 61 check ride. You can do that. Progress
Not the
checks.
other way around.
Not the other way around. No, definitely. Progress checks. So we just changed this like a week ago, where we used to have 3 private, 3 instrument, and 1 commercial progress check or stage check or phase check, call them a bunch of different things. 141, we have the same ones as well. Actually, in the commercial, we have like 5. They're little baby progress checks. Yeah. The reason we went from 4 to 3, and we've always had it in 141, is people are getting to their pre-solo progress check without, like, they're jumping over the beginnings, the very early, like the first 3 or 4 lessons that people should really be focusing on. And I think a lot of it is also like students are overwhelmed in the first phase. And so we have a progress check in phase 2 for both the private and instrument rating, so that we're checking like, hey, are we really getting it? Because you don't want to, start flying approaches when you're having trouble with your basic scan. Yes, you can fly the plane with your scan, but maybe it's taking a little bit too much brain power. Once you start flying approaches, it's just all going to go. So we have that check early on. Let's see, DPEs, we talked about that. Certification requirements. So how do you prove that you qualify to take a check ride? Part 61, you have to log everything in your student logbook. The DP's got to review it. And the responsibility is on the student and the instructor to prove all of these things. Who's gone to a check ride and it's taken like 45 minutes to go through a logbook? Part 141, you come in with a graduation certificate, and it says, I graduated from a FAA pilot school. And that basically vouches for you meeting all of the requirements of the course, right? So they don't have to check your logbook. They will, but they don't have to. But they're not looking for like, hey, is this airport 50 miles from that airport? Or is they like, oh, what time did the sun set this day? And how many landings did you do? They're not doing all of that. It's just basically show up with a certificate, and it works. And then first time pass rate tend to do a little bit better in 141. Any questions? All right, let's see. PPL, I'll skip over that for you guys. Instrument rating course requirements. Here I've got like, the requirements for, this is kind of a little bit busy, but I've got the requirements for 141, 35 training hours, 35 dual instrument. Of that, 21 have to be in an airplane. The rest can be in sim. So that's a little bit different than the 40 hours required for the instrument rating. One of the biggest differences, though, is this 50 hours of cross country. You don't have to have that for the 141, right? So you remember we were talking about giving you the tools, the knowledge, the skills before you do the experience. This is kind of it right here. You don't have to have the 50 hours of cross country. And so after you finish your instrument rating, then you can start doing a lot of the cross countries. And you're like, in my opinion, this is Paul Storsley's opinion, you're like a much more prepared pilot to start doing those kinds of trips. You've got it all in your tool belt, right? Yeah, and it's kind of like, you know, if you're learning to drive and when you're, you know, 16 in 3 months, like, hey, let's take a road trip to San Francisco, you know. Yeah, you could probably get there, but you know, if you have if you have a little bit more of the knowledge behind you, you, you'll get a lot more out of it, right? Uh, one weird little thing is that the IFR cross country says one segment of at least 100 nautical miles straight line distance between each airport, so it's good to do that.
Air to ground counts. There.
Yeah. Let's see. So the syllabus, again, we use the same syllabus for both 141 and 61. This syllabus, though, for instrument rating, it's 8 phases. Each phase is supposed to be a week. There's 3 lessons in the first phase, 4 in the second phase. There's a progress check in the second phase, 3 in the third, 3 in the fourth. Now, these are lessons. Lessons can be repeated. So, you know, how we say, oh, fly 5 times a week. Well, phase 1, you can do 5 flights, repeating some parts of them for phase 1. So that might be 5 flights, of which you do 3 lessons, or maybe you don't cover all the tasks in 1 lesson, right? But in any case, 4 stages, 8 phases for instrument rating, 4 progress checks, each on the even phases. You know, we have some requirements that you qualify for a progress check. All the lessons before have to be complete. They all have to be logged with like landings and hours in Flight Schedule Pro. And if they are out of order, they just have to have a comment that says, hey, we did this lesson before that lesson. We did the VOR approaches before the ILS approaches, because the ILS in Long Beach was like, they weren't accepting anybody. Yeah. And then before graduation, remember that graduation certificate counts for a lot. So we have to do checks to make sure, oh yes, you have all the lessons complete. You have your King's Ground certificate uploaded in our database. You have to have your written test uploaded in our database, and you have to meet all the experience requirements. So we have to do that checking. It's not the DPE, but that saves a lot in the check ride, you know, in that case. Questions about that? All right, so transferring to 141 from 61, it's hard to do in the middle of your program, and it's easy to transfer out. But you can do it. So you do have to transfer from 61 to 141. You have to have a written and flight proficiency evaluation, or not written, a knowledge evaluation. And usually you can count the last flight in 61, since we track your progress in 61 anyway, that can count. But you can only transfer up to 25% of the minimum requirements, which means you can only transfer 8.75 hours to count towards 141. That being said, if the minimum is 35 hours and you transfer 8.75, another way to look at it is I need 27 hours to complete the instrument rating. If you think let's say you have 12 hours instrument time and you can only transfer like 9, think, well, where I am in the syllabus, is it likely that I'll finish the rest in 27 hours? Or if it's going to be like, you know, 31 hours, then maybe it doesn't matter that I don't transfer all of the 12. People get that math a little bit? Yeah, so yeah, a way to think of it is it's going to take 27 hours. Requires a statement from the CFI and the student about the student's knowledge. So that's just an email that I received from them. And then we archive your logbook, just ask for a copy of it and upload it. And then a school representative, that's usually me, provides a justification. And here's like, ooh, I'm sorry, I didn't black out somebody's name in here. Somebody transferred in, and it says, you know, what date they were enrolled, when did they do their aeronautical test, and you know, what syllabus did they use? Yeah, and it says, oh, you're gonna transfer in at phase 3, scenario 3, crosswind takeoffs and landings. Right. Any questions about that? All right. Transferring to 61 from 141, you can leave at any time. Just send an email. And usually for a student transferring out on their own, you don't have to give a reason. If we initiate the termination, I like to give a reason, just because the FAA looks at our record sometimes. You can, yeah, like in that scenario with the commercial, you can go through the whole commercial syllabus as 141 and say, you know what, I'm going to take a 61 check ride. I meet all the experience requirements, and my logbook is up to date, and you can do that. So it's easy. Any questions about 141? So I'm going to give you, that's informational. Oh, go
Can
ahead.
I just say, Jacob, I know you're on 141 instruments, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to add anything to what Paul said about the experience or about what's the mind?
It's nice to go through, see a lot more of how you're doing in flight schedule pro. And it's not, if you're worried about it being too like forcing you to do something you don't feel like you're ready for it. So he was talking about going back to lessons. So if you're doing approaches like what I'm doing right now and you don't feel ready for it, you don't have to do like, I'm doing this approaches and then I have to do my face checks and I have to go work them. You can keep redoing that until you get.
Question.
I was just curious, what do I have to do to become a 141
Instructor?
or to like be qualified to instruct?
So yes, to be a 141 instructor, you have to do a proficiency check with the chief, assistant chief, or check instructor at Slink. And you have to take ground training in the objectives and knowledge, the objectives of the each syllabus, each course. And then you have to, that's to qualify, right? And then you have to have a commercial pilot certificate, medical, a couple of other things like that. And that's in the regs. That's was it 141.37? No, 141.37 is a check instructor. I forget what reg it is, but it's in the regs. But in addition to that, and like kind of the most important thing that I'm always looking for is like, you gotta plan out what you're doing for each flight. You've got to execute to the plan, change as necessary, and then you have to do good recording of what was done each flight. And that, to me, that really helps out the student a lot, because the student can see what they did well, what they didn't do well, and it's, you know, yeah, a like, you know, 15-minute debrief should go over that, but having it in a written record so that you can come back to it like 3 weeks later is useful. And me as a chief, I can pull up almost any student's written records and I can see like, hey, this person's taking their, they've done the takeoffs and landings lesson like, you know, 5 or 6 times. But they, you know, and then they have issues over here. You can actually kind of build a picture of like what's going on here, you know, just with all that tracking. And as an instructor, recording it, the detail is helpful.
And can I just add, you'll see in Flight Schedule Pro on the instructors, it'll say like instructor's name and then parentheses 141. And anybody who has the parentheses 141 been through that induction. If you're currently with an instructor who's not 141 approved, right, or hasn't gone through that process, it's not that hard for them to get that. Did you talk to Paul? And or right, like there are plenty of instructors here.
Yeah. Yeah, and so our goal is to get some more people through the program. There's a minimum number of students that have to graduate and get a certificate in each course in order to get examining authority. And so our goal is to get through that pretty quickly within like, you know, the next few months. In San Diego, we're going to do it in probably like 2 months. Let's see. Yeah, sure.
It's first station, so Torrance has to get that permission too. And so the family will be living,
Yeah.
so it's not just as a whole.
Yeah, so interesting thing about the way we're structured, we have one certificate in San Diego and another certificate here in Torrance. We do have plans to combine them as one school, and we can do that. You can have a primary school and a satellite school. It's like a little bit of a different application to the FAA. Long Beach and Santa Monica are not on our certificate yet. But we're planning on just adding them. In order to add them, you have to submit a whole bunch of paperwork, and that's not, frankly, that hasn't been a huge priority for us yet, because the more the priority is getting the examining authority. Yeah. Question.
So if I'm doing instrument right now, maybe I get done with my check ride, and I want to do partial 141.
Yeah.
Maybe a month or two down the line after I get my check ride done, I do partial 1.
Mhm.
Not only would it be possible, but would it be more advantageous to me as a student? Because now at that point, maybe you have enough students going through and you have met the objective to have, done away with TP. Now you have, we're doing in-house.
So with the commercial, I would say, so in general, I would say yes. Specifically with the commercial, I'd say maybe it's not the best route to go, just because the commercial course requires 120 hours in the course. So that means from when you enroll in the course, wait, no, that's 120 hours. Powered lift. Oh, airplane. I was like, powered lift. It says airplane or powered lift. Yeah, it requires 120 hours in the course. And if you've already been working on your commercial requirements during your instrument training, that some of that can transfer over, but only 25%. So 30 hours can. Right. Yeah, so it's a weirdness. Now there's a reg, was it 141.55? I've been, trying to work with the FAA to get to reduce the minimums. Yeah, a pilot may request and receive approval for any training course that does not meet the minimum, blah, blah, blah. But we have to have done at least 10 students in that. So I've been working with them to try to reduce the commercial minimums to 55 hours instead of 120. Question.
So with that being said, commercial is better to do in part 61 because the 250 hours is your total combined hours, as
Exactly.
opposed to doing 120 hours from the beginning, from zero.
Yeah. Now, if you were to go your instrument rating 141, that doesn't require the 50 hours commercial or 50 hours cross country, then you'd probably finish your instrument rating a lot quicker. In which case, 120 hours might not be it might still be less than the 250. So in that case, it depends on each individual and what training they had before. But my opinion is, if you do the instrument rating 141, it doesn't have the cross country requirements, and so you can get your instrument rating earlier, and then you do a lot of that cross country in your commercial training. So that's where that 120 hours comes in, because you're doing a lot of that cross country in that commercial, which again, I think is kind of like a more appropriate place for it. Personal opinion, I know each instructor might have a different opinion on that, but I don't know, it's logical. So that's the 141. If you're interested in it, I would ask that you can send an email to chiefs@slingpilotacademy.com and say, hey, I'm interested in 141 for instrument rating, and just let me know kind of where you are in the course, and we can talk a little bit further about like, hey, does it make sense for you to transfer or not? You know. And if you just started on you know, Monday, I'd say you might want to think about doing 141 right from the start.
Can I add one more thing, Paul?
Sure.
This is relatively new, right? Like even since I started last November. And so there's some, I would say, like misconceptions in the hangar about like, what is 141? What does it do? Like all this stuff. So just like, that's partly why we wanted Paul to come here, to like just explain directly, like, here's the situation, here's the deal. So you can all make your own decisions, but I co-sign that. Like if you just start on Monday, like there's any reason not to consider, strongly consider. That's the bottom.
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah.
Sure.
Feature ever have ATP?
Oh yeah, we're definitely thinking about that. Yeah. So we're yeah, that is something we're definitely thinking about. That's the other thing. If you go through a whole program 141, you can get a restricted ATP. Right now there's the regulations were that you had to do like a degree alongside it, but now there's a way to do it, and it's not necessarily with that degree, but with academic training. But so that's something that we're considering. No school in the country has done that yet.
That's down pipeline. And you could say. This wouldn't probably apply to me because I'm already a little further ahead than I was. But for other students, it would be more beneficial for them to start with instrument 141 and then probably get to the instrument.
Yeah, definitely.
Nathan,
So you're saying for. Start.
So for the restricted ATP, I don't know that you have to do it from PPL, but we haven't charted out the entire pathway there yet. Question? No, it's not more money. It's a little bit of a curriculum change, but I would say it's not even so much curriculum. It's stricter adherence to the curriculum that we already have. And then and it's more focus in the curriculum on like on the learning elements, especially in the beginning. Sure.
Everything. Great, like first is check, really, terms, coordinate, everything. You got the basics down there, the next day, so next base check. Or the step instead of everything correct.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what we see. We track progress check on SATs, and we see a lot of that on the first progress check, and I'll pull up the record and I'll see like this person like spent 1.2 hours on the first lesson, 1.2 on the second, 1.2 on the third lesson, and then jumped right into doing takeoffs and landings. And maybe that early focus on hey, can we fly the plane straight? And we recognize, pitch for airspeed, power for altitude, things like that, and focus a little bit more on that very, very early on. It's primacy. It's like, then we wouldn't see these issues coming up to the pre-solo progress check. And so 141 kind of forces us to do that, So speaking of tracking progress through here, something that everybody can do a better job of is keeping an eye on our progress through the program. I would say that, definitely FSP you want to use to track your progress. The website is way better than the app. No, hands down, the website is a lot better. When I'm flying with a student and I'm logging the flight, I usually do logging of the flight in the plane, because that's when we're doing the maneuvers, and I can just say check good, X bad, or actually I have a scale of 1 to 5. And then that's another thing. The 141 task grading scale is 1 to 5. So, and 3 is satisfactory. And then I write notes in the flight, and I do it all through the website. The app, yeah, I don't know. Some people do it with the app. Some people log their flights after the flight. Some people log their flights the night after the flight. I don't know. I like to do it in the plane because I want it done. Students you should definitely visit the FSP daily to review your progress. How do we get there? There's something underneath here. In your student page, you can go to course enrollments, or on the right side, there's, courses. You get to course enrollments and you select your course. Here I have private pilot, but you guys are all an instrument pilot, so click that to view. And then you have 5 different tabs up here. One of them is this is the course summary page, and it'll tell you like how many hours you've flown and whatnot. If you're not a 141 student, it won't tell you necessarily how many hours you've flown. But if you are, it'll talk about the hours and stuff like that. But if you click on the progress tab, that's kind of a powerful tab. It will show you which phase you're in and which lessons there are, whether it's complete or not complete. And then you can click on each session and it'll tell you what you went over in that session. The syllabus is set up for 1 phase per week. You want to confirm with the syllabus that your ground training is keeping up with your flight training. All right. Let's see what else. Yeah, just continue to track your progress is kind of what the webpage looks like. And then if you look in the back of the syllabus, it'll show how many hours per lesson. It always puts 1.0 hours in there. That's because it assumes you're flying like out of a private airport in Iowa with like no airspace, and you're never waiting, and the practice area is like right above you. I think 1.4 is more typical per flight or per lesson. Let's see. Yeah, be familiar with the structure instrument. 8 phases we talked about, or 8 phases, 4 stages. Let's see, the night before a flight, you'll want to go through the progress. Go to the progress section again. You click on the hyperlink for that. For the next, here we have somebody who's gone through controlling the airplane and increasing awareness is the next flight. Hey, you click on that and it'll give you a full description of what's coming up in that flight, right? You can look at all the items that are coming up. Oh, performance maneuvers are coming up. Well, let me look at the airplane flying handbook for performance maneuvers, right? So before the flight, you know what you're going to do. You can read up on it, right? You can pull up the ACS and look at the details of what do I need to know? What are my risk management tasks, and what are the skills that I need to perform for this maneuver? you can get this all before you fly. And so before the flight, you want to go over all of that area and your pre-flight action. So I'd say do this like at least an hour before the flight. Just review it again, right? Do your pre-flight action, review the completion standards for each maneuver, you know. And then after the flight, go over your performance with the instructors, right? And then review, like if there are any things that are unsat, then review them in the airplane flying handbook. And by the way, it's a red X. I try not to, I don't like the way that's displayed. Exactly. Yeah, that's so 141, we've got like grades, or we've got 1 through 5, 3s being to standards, right? And so, okay, the first time you did something, it's not the standards. Big whoop, we're learning.
Exactly, it's not supposed to be mistakes.
Yeah. So, but whatever the case, sorry that it's red, but hey, it gives you an idea. What do we need to review, right? And so that's the general idea. 141, we tend to do like a much better job of tracking this stuff than 61, and definitely we do a much better job of, you know, when you're going through each phase, you know, making sure we hit each one of these lessons in there and all the items in the lessons, all the
And
tasks.
just to be clear, this is applicable to both 61 and 141.
Yes,
Same
absolutely.
syllabus, right, but same tracking.
Yeah. And if you find that, you know, you're doing phase 2 scenario 1, and then the next lesson you're doing phase 3 scenario 3, ask your instructor, hey, why didn't we do this, or why not that? And they might say, oh, you know what, we did all those maneuvers and you're good on them. They might give you a reason, but ask. Right, because I see that as well. Some instructors will like skip lessons, or some instructors will repeat lessons over and over again. You know, the best way is work on something until you got it down and keep moving, you know. All right. Any questions about that? Sorry, I was rushing a little bit, but I promised him half an hour, and I think I went over that a little bit. All right, so if you're interested in 141, please send an email to chiefs, that's with an S, at slingpilotacademy.com, and give an indication of like how far you've gotten in your flying or instrument, and like what task you're on. Usually I should be able to find it in Flight Schedule Pro. And I think like, I don't know. It's a good way to go, and we're very close to examining authority. I'd like to get there.
I would too, because then I can apply to be a check instructor, and that's,
Oh yeah, then he's like giving your check right.
then I'll get your check right. You really fun. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Also, just y'all should know, Paul has a wealth of knowledge about flight training, about maneuvers, about the curriculum, about syllabus, about aeronautics in general. So I'm gonna say to you about, yeah, that's right. Chris is gonna embarrass you. Weren't you involved in some of the chips and WASPs?
What?
We're gonna talk about this. We're gonna learn about WASP GPS on Monday, but
Yeah, I have another job as an aerospace engineer, and currently I'm doing like navigation, resilient navigation, yeah, including WASP.
he says
It's
a lot. Paul basically invented WASP. That's a little hyperbole.
Well, the group I work for, we were the first to ever track a single GPS satellite. Like, and you can't get a position from that, but back in the day, that's kind of, you needed to do it once.
Yep.
And then they were also the first to track 4 and get a position off of GPS. So yeah, they're kind of like, our group's kind of like pioneers in that sense.
And you can see that coming over into Sling, right? Paul saying like, we're the first school in the Long Beach FSDO in 20 something years to become a 141.
Yeah.
This is, I don't know. you made the right choice to come here, right? Like, this is a forward-thinking kind of cutting-edge school, which in all the ways. I know, we gotta embarrass them a little bit. Paul knows a lot of stuff. Awesome. Can I ask everybody to stand up, please, and just do a little stretch break? Refresh ourselves. We transition back into the IFR. Nice. Nice. Thank you. All right, here's what we're gonna do, folks. We're gonna do comms and VOR today. We're probably gonna push emergencies to tomorrow. I think that's fine. Also doing all of our risk management and conversations about that tomorrow. So I think that that'll be a nice match. The reason we want to start with comms is because communications are a little different in IFR land than they were in VFR.
Anyone want anybody?
Nope. Well, yes, but we're actually going to start with another one of our trio of regulations, which is required equipment. What's the reg for required equipment? Okay, so Chris, because he's been through this class once already, knows that I have 3 regs for IFR that you're basically guaranteed to come up on your phase checks and your check regs. One is 91205, which is required equipment. And I'm saying, like, memorize it. You probably memorized that for private, right? But it's there's new equipment now that we're going to look at in instrument. Just name drop the reg. The DPEs love it. You name drop the reg. Well, per 91205, and the heart starts to flutter, and they're like, "Oh, this is amazing." This
The name all those things off.
See, exactly. You get the idea, right? Exactly, right? 91205, guaranteed. 91185. We'll talk about. I think it's week 2 or 3. That is lost communications under IFR. And the last one that I guarantee is 91175, which is takeoffs and landings under IFR. We're going to talk about 91175 starting next week with takeoffs. We'll talk about it week 4 with approaches as well. 91185, I forget exactly which week, but these 3 folks, like, if you're going to sit down and like memorize or be prepared to name drop 3 regs for your IFR check reg, 91205, 91185, 91175. Let's just briefly, we're not going to do a full 91205 deep dive today, but let's just briefly refresh. Powered civil aircraft was, Larry?
175 is what?
Takeoff and landing under IFR. This is where you, like, when can you, when can't you, what's required to take off and land under IFR. 911-205, Bravo is our visual daytime. What's the acronym? Anybody can shout it out? This is our A tomato flames. Charlie is at night. What's the acronym for that? Flaps. And then what we're going to spend more time in here in Delta is grab card, which is the new acronym for IFR. One of the R in grab, one of the R's is radio. Here it is. It's Delta 91205 Delta 2, two-way radio communication and nav equipment suitable for the route to be flown. So there's no radio in A tomato flames. There's no radio in flaps. Obviously, if you're flying into airspace, it requires you to talk to people. It becomes required. But per 91205, no matter what, you have to have a radio plus nav equipment suitable for the route to be flown. So that's why we're talking about comms, and I kind of want to emphasize that. That's what's different about these comms than past comms. So when are we talking to folks, and who are we talking to? Here's a little chart showing the course of our flight from the beginning to the end. When we leave from a towered airport, obviously, we're first talking to tower. But I actually want to start even before that. Let's go through the order that we would typically pick up frequencies or talk to folks on our radio when we're departing IFR. The beginning is it's the same as VFR. When I'm getting in the plane, I'm getting ready to taxi. What's the first frequency I pull up and listen to? ATIS. It's the same in IFR, right? Got to pick up the weather. How? Why? Because I need to know, can I satisfy the requirements to actually take off? Again, we'll get to that more. First is ATIS. Second, and we'll talk about clearances next week, but you need to actually get an IFR clearance in order to depart IFR. We're talking here. This comes from either clearance delivery, or ground, depending on the airport. Some airports have a special frequency for clearance delivery. Some airports do not. How do you know? Chart supplement under the comms section of the chart supplement. ForeFlight will also tell you in the info tab on ForeFlight. Does Torrance have a clearance delivery frequency? No. So in that case, we would go ATIS to ground. Sometimes at an airport that does have clearance delivery, like for example, Long Beach, it's a quiet day, maybe it's early morning, maybe they don't have a bunch of controllers, like the control tower is like a little, more minimally staffed, and it's the same controller who's doing clearance delivery and ground. In that case, they might say on the ATIS, at the end of the ATIS, the remarks, they'd say, for clearance delivery, contact ground. Cool. So that would be the only case in which you would be at an airport that had clearance delivery where you would actually skip that and go and get your clearance from ground. Otherwise, if they don't have clearance delivery, you always got to come to ground to get that. We're going to review this again next week when we talk about departure procedures, but does that track so far? Cool. So when you call up clearance, Sling 805 Alpha Zulu on the ramp, we have Bravo. We're ready for our IFR clearance to Fallbrook. It was the Fallbrook hater? No. You were the Fallbrook hater to Fallbrook, right? Okay, good. So that's how we would call up. Or if we're talking to ground, Torrance ground, it's like 805 Alpha Zulu on the ramp. We have Bravo ready for our IFR clearance to Meadows, right? To Bakersfield Meadows, whatever it might be. Ground. Then ground, if we've already gotten our clearance, our clearance from clearance delivery, cool, then we call ground to taxi. Or we'll talk to ground for both our clearance and our taxi. Then finally we get to tower. That brings us now to the chart. Good so far? Yeah. After tower, we take off. Pretty soon they change us to TRACON. What does TRACON stand for? Anybody can say it. Terminal is the first one. Radar, approach, control. Terminal radar, approach control, right? This is the airspace that's like around these kind of more busy airports.
Not to be confused with SoCal, right?
It is SoCal. SoCal is our TRACON. Each TRACON has a name, and so our TRACON is called SoCal. Yes. Bakersfield has a Bakersfield approach. Santa Barbara has a Bakersfield approach. Those are TRACONs.
It's like when you go to, what is it? Like Oxnard area is like the military.
The GU approach. Yes, exactly. That's right. They have a name, but that category of air traffic control is called a TRACON. It's like below the flight levels, right? It's like you're not so high as to be on the big en route section yet. It is also, I call this sort of like the on-ramp, off-ramp area of the airspace. It's like, when you're learning how to drive, at least for me, one of the hardest parts was learning how to merge onto the freeway because you're trying to speed up and get up with the other traffic. That's what's happening in TRACON. Airplanes are taking off, airplanes are coming down. There's a lot of mess. This is sort of like that on-ramp, off-ramp area. Once you leave a TRACON area, or which you could do either by getting outside of its lateral boundaries or by climbing above its vertical boundaries, then you're with center. They also have names. There's only like, I think, a dozen of them or something. AIM chapter 4 or 5 will have a map. It'll literally tell you what are the different centers. What's our center right here where we sit? LA Center, right? By the way, little trivia. Where are the people at SoCal TRACON physically? Where? San Diego. Not Texas. Flight service in Texas. Flight service in Texas. But the SoCal TRACON is in a big building, I think at Miramar. And so when you call up SoCal and you're like, I need deviation for clouds, and you're like frustrated, like, why didn't they know? They're literally in a windowless radar room in San Diego. They're all there. Yes.
Are there like remote radar?
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously the comms are all local, right? That's a line of sight technology. But the actual physical human being you're talking to is at Miramar in San Diego. Where's LA Center? It's in LA County, Palmdale. They're up in the desert. They're all up there at another military base at 42 area. That's called. But they're all up in the desert. So when you talk to LA Center, that's where they're. Just little funsies, right? They're human beings too. I just kind of want to share that to remind ourselves, like it's actual humans out there, like living and breathing and having traffic on the way to work, just like we are. They get frustrated, right? Like everything happens.
So are they in buildings where like you wouldn't even know that they're TRACON?
Yeah, totally.
Like, it's just like a random.
Probably says FAA out front.
Oh.
Yeah, totally. Totally. SoCal TRACON, just a couple more things, is the busiest TRACON in the world as measured by the number of operations per year. And it is not a close second. Second place is not even close. This is the busiest airspace in the world. So by training here, it might take a little longer to kind of pick up the radio comms. And those of you who've already done some instrument training, you know, like you got to be on it on SoCal, depending on the time of day. The side note to that is you're going to be really good at the radio. You're going to be really good at the radio. If you can do instrument flying here in SoCal TRACON, you can do instrument flying literally anywhere in the world. Cool. Anybody ever talk to LA Center? Okay, where were you when you talked to LA Center?
I mean, generally, if you're flying north,
Yes.
get up above like 8,000 or 9,000, or yeah, pretty much anytime you're in this area when you get above like 8,000 or 9,000.
And I've had more of an experience less about the altitude and more about the lateral boundaries. Like if I'm going north, like through Gorman, like through up the Grapevine, like once we're past kind of like, you know, the valley, we're getting closer to, that's when they're like, peace, talk to center, you're out. Or if you're going to the desert, right out to Vegas, right? Once you're past kind of like Whiteman and all that, okay, talk to center. Sebastian, when have you talked to them? Okay, yeah, on your way to Gorman, yeah. Yeah, when I've been flying up the Central Coast, it's sort of like SoCal, and then another SoCal, and then another SoCal, and then center. And then once you get into the valley, then you're in Bakersfield approach, and then back to center, and then another center, and then finally you're at NorCal. NorCal approach, right, on the other side of that big sort of Central Valley. Yeah.
Is center more chill than SoCal?
What are your opinions? Those you talking, I see some nods. What do you think about there? Story time. Yeah. Yeah. So that's been my experience as well. It's also really fun because, you know, you're on with like, it's all the en route jet traffic, right? There are 37,000 and here I am at 9,000. Just feel like I'm playing with the big boys. That's center, right? Then on our way down, you can see in the chart, we go back to TRACON and back to tower, back to ground. And just kind of burst the process. In IFR, you are required to be in radio communication with ATC at all times. That is different than VFR. And we'll talk about what happens when you lose radios, 91, 185. But just know, right, 91, 205, you got to have the radio, you got to use it. Why? I can't see outside. I need somebody to be keeping me safe from terrain and from other aircraft, from other obstacles. So that is required. We're going to talk about tech routes next week. Actually, we'll probably talk about tech routes week 4. Yeah. Okay. So Valdir's asking like about what kind of equipment our sling has, right? There's FAA equipment designations that are in the AIM. Slant golf means we have GNSS, basically GPS navigation. And yes, we are slant golf. So our equipment type is Sierra Lima Golf 2 slant golf. That's our equipment type. Cool. Let's see if there's anything else here on radios that we need to cover. No. Cool. All right. We're going to talk about VORs next. Remember, the regs said you have to have two-way radio communication and nav equipment suitable for the route of flight. We're going to talk way more about VORs and VOR inspections on Monday. I showed you where we keep our VOR test log in the binders. Please, please, please do your VOR tests. It's so weird to me that people here don't do the VOR tests. You should be doing that. I want to see your names and your signatures in those VOR test logs when I go fly those planes. Thank you. So how do we actually, tune in a VOR on a sling? This is something I want to really cover because this is an area where I've noticed some misconceptions out in the hangar that I want to correct. So we have this fancy box here, the GTN 650, the Garmin Navigator 650. This, folks, is a huge, amazing high-tech tool for us. We're very lucky that we get to train using such good equipment. This not only does our VFR GPS, it is fully IFR approved and suitable and certified. This is a very, very good piece of equipment. It has both our comm and our nav radios inside of it. So when we're tuning in a radio frequency, we use it. When we're tuning in a VOR frequency, we use it. How do we actually do that? I put a link in the chat last night to the Garmin Trainer app. Can you please pull that up on your iPads? If you don't have it downloaded, you can download it now or just look over somebody's shoulder. But I want to make sure we all know here how to use this. Let's see. All right, I'm going to try the new AirPlay. Apparently we have AirPlay now. Let's see. Change. Oh, classroom, not computer. Classroom.
You know,
Yes.
did you wanna talk about the, before you hit continue? Oh, you're already ready.
What's that?
Like, let's check database.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Let's see. Just trying to do the AirPlay. All right, Jacob, you're on standby. Mirroring, screen mirroring, classroom. Let's see if this works. 3304. Hey, technology is working. Okay, we're gonna go to Garmin Trainer. Okay, when you first load the Garmin Trainer, this is what you see. Demo mode, don't use this in real life, continue. You'll notice here that the first screen that pops up, and this is the first screen that'll pop up in the plane, is this database check. You do need to ensure that the databases are current in order to use the GPS for IFR navigation. So don't just be like, oh, continue. Double check that at least that navigation database is current. I'll press continue. The next page is this instrument panel self-test. This is another thing, especially in instrument flying, you do not just want to be pressing continue. This page is up there for a reason. What it's doing is helping to make sure that the commands, the navigation commands that the GTN 650 is sending out to our primary flight instruments are actually being received properly. So it's our responsibility as IFR pilots to verify that what the Garmin GTN 650 is sending out is actually what we're seeing on the flight display. So here's what this means. LCDI, lateral CDI, lateral flag, vertical CDI, vertical flag, to from enunciator. The enunciator should be on, meaning message. OBS is at nothing, and the direct track should be set to 150. So what this means is then it says LCDI, lateral CDI should be half left. When I look here at my G3X, this HSI should be, the CDI in our HSI should be deflected, half deflection to the left. I'm gonna verify that. I should have no lateral flag. My vertical CDI should be deflected up. So this is going to be my vertical indications here, just next to my altimeter tape. It should be halfway up. Same thing should be happening on my G5, my standby instrument. So we'll check both of those. No vertical flag. The two flat, we should be showing a 2 indication, and it should be set to 150. You should see the little message flashing. So takes 5 seconds, but especially on a check ride, if you don't do that, you have not legally made sure that that is working. So just get in the habit every flight. Okay. Yeah. Half left, no flag, half up, no flag, 2, 150. Right. And do that on both your primary flight display and your G5. Good. I'm going to press continue. Welcome to the home screen of the Garmin GTN 650. See how it says message and it's flashing? It's trying to tell you something. And one of my other sort of things that I want to change here in the general sort of population is like, people fly with this message flashing the whole flight. It's trying to tell you something. Click and see what it's trying to tell you. So let's see. Message. Demo mode. Don't use this in the actual plane. Okay, fine. Usually when I'm in the practice area, this flashes kind of an annoying way. And I think that's why people learn to ignore it. It just says airspace alert, airspace alert. You're about to go into the Long Beach Delta. You're about to go in the Torrance Delta. You're about to go in the Bravo. It's annoying in the practice area, but what I don't want to have happen, the books call this a normalization of deviance, where we basically learn to ignore the warning signs that are trying to keep us safe. So even in the practice area, I know it's annoying, but when you're doing your IP triple C, you're setting up for maneuver. That's commercial. I guess for us, it's more like, all right, I'm getting set up for an approach. I'm being vectored. And it's flashing. Just tap it and look, please, because it might actually help you. Oh crap! I got disoriented. I am going into a delta. I'm not talking to the tower. That just saved you a pilot violation, right? A pilot deviation. Cool. All that is preview. Here are our comms over here. You can tap this, type in a frequency, and one tip on the comms, you can skip the first one. The GTN 650 knows that all of our comm frequencies start with a 1. So if I want to go to 127.2, I can just press 272 and go from there. You can also press 127, you know, if you like the extra button presses, go for it, but you can skip the first one on the comm. Yeah, that's a good point, Sugar, right? That could save you thousands of GTN button presses over your course of your pilot career. Exactly. You can press enter, and when I press enter, that will pop it into my standby. If I want to take it active, I tap that top right, and that flip-flops it to standby, or sorry, to active. If I go back here to my frequency entry, one more thing. If I'm told, you know, sling A05 Alpha Zulu, contact departure 127.2, 27.2, 5 Alpha Zulu. I can pull this open, put 272, and then I can press transfer, and it will immediately enter it and make it active. Button press save. Okay. So if I press transfer, boom, it just put it to active immediately. One other thing, the monitor section allows me to listen to that frequency that's standby whenever I'm not receiving anything on the primary, on the active frequency. So we only have one radio in a sling. This is how we have to pick up the ATIS. It's a pain in the butt on SoCal. It's the busiest TRACON in the world. And sometimes it's really hard to pick up the ATIS while you're in the air, holding over Seal Beach, trying to pick up the Long Beach ATIS so I can do a practice approach at a Long Beach. That's how we do it.
There's one thing that has 2 radios.
Yeah, 6 Juliet Bravo, I think, right? Yeah, good.
So yesterday I was on the same spot, looking over Still Beach.
Yeah.
And monitoring Long Beach ATIS.
Yeah.
But you can't hear anything because Tokyo is stopping the whole time.
Yeah.
You can certainly ask them to switch frequency to get ATIS. And then switch back.
You can.
Oh, that's the problem.
You can. That's technically the only way to do it. When the frequency's that busy, I don't know. What would I say? You're correct, I guess is what I would say. I always feel bad because like if they're that busy, it's like, do I really want to say like, hey, I'm leaving you by, take up airspace, you by, but you can't just switch. Or they might just say, get started, and I'll tell you the altimeter set. I don't know, but that is what you would do. That is. It's one of the more frustrating parts about doing local approaches, in my opinion. Those of you who have done some local flying already, would you agree with that? It's just hard to cement readings. Especially that 125.35. It's always busy.
So we can't just go on our grandma and go let it right.
No, because that's not the ATIS, right? You can look up the G3X has, if you spin the little knob to weather, you can pick up the weather, but same in ForeFlight. If you have your ForeFlight connected to GTN 650, you can pick up the weather, but that's not the ATIS. The same weather as the ATIS, but remember the ATIS also will say remarks. It'll tell you maybe some NOTAMs. It'll tell you, hey, for clearance, delivery, contact, ground, right? Like the ATIS, it'll tell you, the ATIS will tell you what runway is in use, what approaches are in use, whereas ForeFlight and the G3X, they only tell you the winds and the altimeters.
So last week when the ATIS was done, that's what like people were doing like negative ATIS, but I got the stuff off for flight.
That was so
and then
stressful.
The tower was like, okay.
That was so stressful. That was so stressful. Is it working again? I haven't flown this week yet. Okay, thank God. It's wild. Sweet. So that's the comms. We good there? Review for most people, but for those of you who are new to the sling, that's how it works. Now, how do I get to my nav? There's this button on the bottom right. I tap that once and you'll see the comm change to, oh, I gotta press it again. Change to nav. See how it says nav now in the top where it says active? I'll switch it back to comm. You can see how that works. So just tap that bottom right and it moves it from comm to nav. So now I want to tune in some VOR. Here's how I do it. I want to tune in San Marcos. I tap that. Now what's interesting is here you do have to put the first one. I don't know why, but this one I want to put 114.9er. Enter. Now I've got San Marcos standby. What's the Seal Beach I should have this memorized. What's the Seal Beach frequency?
1.57.
What was it?
1.57.
So I can put 115.7 and I can just press transfer. That puts it immediately into active and there it goes SLI VOR. That's how it works. After 10 or 15 seconds, this will, from being on nav, it'll default back automatically to COM. So you'll watch that happen. As if I talk too long, it's going to default back to COM. Or if you want to go back to COM manually, just tap that bottom right button. Cool. Here's the thing about VORs though. We have to verify that they're working. What is the primary way you verify that a VOR is working?
On our Garmin 3X.
Well, before you tell the steps, because I know you know the steps, what are we doing? Not in terms of what buttons, but how do we verify that it's working? That's it. The Morse code. The Morse code, right? We have to listen to the Morse code. How do we listen to the Morse code? So first, we tune in the VOR and make it active. So right now, I have, oh, you see it went back to COM. Let me tap it back to nav. So first we put it in and we put it active. Then on our audio panel, we have to listen to the audio portion of the VOR signal. How do we do that? Our audio panel is built into the G3X. So in the top here, it will say audio. I don't know why this one doesn't have it. It's a weird screenshot. Usually it's like right above the PFD and say audio. Tap that and it gives you all your audio controls. I'm going to switch real quick here to back to HDMI 3 and training. No, there's no G3X app. Sorry. They should make one.
I think they should. I think it's too much of a system.
Probably. You'd have to type in like we got this, 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 and this. Yeah. Here's at least a screenshot for you though of what the audio panel looks like. So this is what it'll show up on the MFD side of the G3X, right? So where the engine page is now on that screenshot on the right side. You still have all your primary flight instruments. This is now popping up on the right side. You can see you have radios, intercom, phone and media, music input, all the stuff from the audio panel. And on the radio section, you'll see this section called nav radios. When I tap nav and that little green bar at the bottom will turn on, that means I'm listening to the audio panel, sending the audio from the audio section of the VOR now through my headset as well. It's overlaying with my comm. So I'm still hearing the comms, but I'm also hearing whatever's coming over the audio channel of the VOR. Good? Those of you with more traditional comm panels, you would just press the physical button that says nav 1 or nav 2, right? Like that's how you turn it on. But this is now our fancy G3X. That's how you do it. Cool. Once you do that, you should be able to hear all of the audio coming over over the nav, exactly, over the VOR. Now let me switch back to the AirPlay, because now we're getting into the part that I'm like really wanting you to know. Because in addition to hearing Morse code, in addition to hearing Morse code over a VOR, what else can you sometimes hear over a VOR audio signal? Sometimes you hear flight service, right? There are certain VORs where you can actually talk to flight service. I switched too soon. Where you can talk to flight service over VOR. So if I go, for example, to our, we're gonna talk more about the low IFR chart next week. So I'll just use the VFR chart for the purposes of this this conversation, right? Like if I go down here to Oceanside, for example, this is the Oceanside VOR. See how the box right above it, it says right below it, it says San Diego. That means I can talk to San Diego radio, the flight service station, over that VOR. But in order for them to hear us, I need to transmit on 122.1, and I listen for the response on 115.3. It's private pilot review also, right? For a VOR where I can talk to flight service over the VOR, it'll have the name of the flight service station underneath the box, and it will tell me what frequency I need to have plugged in to talk to them, right? Because I can't transmit on my comm radio on 115.3. I can transmit on my comm radio on 122.1, and then I listen for that person in Texas to talk back to me on 115.3. Yeah,
So
Chris.
we will push the button and it'll be comms.
Yeah,
Oh, 122.1,
yeah,
and then we'll switch back to that 115. If we're on the nav section and we click the push to talk,
yes.
it doesn't do anything for the nav, right?
It does
So
not.
it-
Push to talk is only gonna be for your comms. It's not, you cannot talk on 115.3. That's a VOR channel, like the physical equipment in the radio doesn't allow for that. Yeah. So here's, yeah,
So I've never actually talked to a voice service station, but
oh, it's really fun.
I mean, I'm assuming it's the same as listening to the VOR, right? You have to actually turn your nav radio on,
Yes,
and then you'll hear them talking over.
yes.
Probably hear the Morse code too.
Okay, so this is now, okay, that's the perfect setup, Will, thank you, because won't you hear the Morse code too? And if you don't have a fancy GTN 650, yes, you'll hear the Morse code. And isn't that annoying to be hearing the dot dot dash 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 while you're trying to get an IFR clearance or get a briefing or whatever else you're doing on flight, talking to the person, talking about a dead frequency, flight services, real, whenever you call them on the radio, like it's story time galore. So that's what you want. Garmin knows this though. So they built a feature into the GTN 650 that will mute the Morse code so you can better hear flight service. It's like the combination of like really old school, like we got a call flight service with like very new school, like digital muting of tones. Okay. Garmin knows this. So I'm going to switch back to my nav for a second. Okay. I'm going to switch Oceanside active 115.3, right? On my comms, I'm going to be on, what was the frequency? What was it? 122.1. So I'll put in 122.1 transfer, right? So now I'm transmitting when I push my push to talk, I'm transmitting on 122.1. I'm listening on 115.3. I press my audio panel, I turned on my nav. So I'm listening to the nav. Right now, I'm hearing everything that's coming from that VOR. But if I want to toggle, basically Garmin has a feature that will mute that Morse code. The way you toggle that feature on and off is while you're on the nav part of your radio, tap the top left button. And you'll see when I tap that top left button, look what happens in our nav box. See that little green ID that I'm toggling on and off? That's the feature that mutes the Morse code. So when I have ID on, it means that the Morse code is not muted. I am able to identify the VOR.
I need that button for home, for my wife.
Right to Garmin. See what you can get. Maybe the electrical engineer that was just in here could work on that. Will.
So I actually had an issue with this on my instrument check ride where the ID was visible, but I couldn't hear the Morse code.
Interesting. So what'd you do?
I failed.
Right, yeah. Right. So we'll be into like now what to do, right? But the number one thing is if you tune in a VOR and you're like, I don't hear the Morse code, make sure that that ID is showing. Because if it is not showing, the VOR might be working, but you will never hear the Morse code because Garmin is using its fancy electronics to say, we're going to prioritize you hearing the voice from Texas over the San Diego radio, because that's what we think you want to do. It's a feature, not a bug. Okay, so tap that, that'll toggle it on ID. Good?
So we tap it so that we can get ID so we could hear the Morse code?
Yes, if it says ID, that means you can hear the Morse code. You can also hear flight service, right? But you can hear the Morse code when it says ID. Yes.
And that's the default. Once you go to the.
It remembers whatever was before. Okay. Yeah, so if the person before you had tapped it and turned it off, then it's off. Yeah.
I'm gonna try that in a second.
Try. Well, the sim has different avionics. The sim has G1000 avionics, not a GTN 650. So this is specifically for the GTN 650. Yeah.
So if it's on but you don't hear it,
Then either you've got something with your volume, you maybe need to mess with the audio panel on your volume, or maybe it's not working. Right? Like that's literally listening for the Morse code is how we know it's working. So maybe it's not working. By the way, don't just listen for the dots and dashes. Check to make sure it's the right one, right? Like just saying like, oh yeah, there's some Morse code is actually not enough, right? Like, is it the right Morse code? So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page here. Sure about that? Exactly. Sure about that? The famous sure. So if I go back to Sky Vector here, I should be hearing dee 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 dee. And unless you have Morse code memorized, the DPE should, or the check CFI should be seeing your eyeballs, looking at some picture of that Morse code. If your eyeballs are not looking at some picture of that Morse code, and you're like, yep, it's identified, the DP is going to be asking you to tap out some messages on Morse code. Make sense? Cool. And thank God we now live in an era where pilots are no longer required to memorize this. They used to be, but we are not. That's why they give us the picture. So please, please, please do. That's why I'm spending time on this, right? It's not just enough to just tune it in. You got to know what you're listening for. And the only way to know that is to look at the picture. At least for me.
You should not only look at it. Your eyeball can be at the complete Morse code.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Just make sure.
Yeah.
Just make sure. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to switch back to the nav. Now we're bringing it home. There's a few other features built into the 650, GTN 650 that I want to make sure we're aware of. Notice down here in the bottom part of the nav box, it says OCN VOR. Yeah? The text from the bottom here, it also happens on the comm. If I switch back to comm, see this says KSNA radio. All the information that's on the bottom of the nav box, the frequency box, is from a database stored in the GTN 650. So GTN 650 has a GPS. It knows you're in SoCal. And it knows that if you've typed in 115.3 and you're in this general area, well, that's the Oceanside VOR. But that is not the GTN 650 identifying it for you. It is literally just pulling it from a database. So that's another common error. Type it in 115.3 and you only see the OCN VOR at the bottom and you're like, yep, it's identified. It is not identified. That is literally just pulled from a database. Now here's the last thing, which is the actual feature that is incredibly helpful. The GTN 650 will listen to the Morse code. It does know Morse code. It knows what the Morse code should be for the Oceanside VOR. And it, in the background, before you even turn on your nav radio to listen to it, it will listen for you. And if the Morse code it hears matches the correct Morse code, it will put whatever the Morse code says here. It will decode the Morse code for you and put it in the top middle. And that'll do that whether you have the ID feature turned on or off. Right? This ID feature is only about muting the Morse code when I'm trying to hear flight service. But it will listen on its own before I even press it, before I do anything. It's automatic in the background to see what the Morse code says. And if it decodes OCN, technically it's been identified. Technically it's been identified. That said, on a check ride, demonstrate you know how to listen to it as well. And on your training, demonstrate you know how to listen to it because weird things can happen, right? On my double I check ride, they were doing weird things to Seal Beach. There's always weird things happening to these VORs. I think sometimes they should put a NOTAM when they're working, not when they're broken. It's like so weird. But there was a NOTAM the day before that said Seal Beach was in on. So I had planned my whole check ride without Seal Beach. Wake up that morning, the NOTAM was gone. Cool, Seal Beach is working. Change my whole plan for the check ride. We go up in the air. I type in, Seal Beach. I press and I noticed there was no self-identification, right? There was no Morse code decoder there. I press audio panel, nav, listen to the Morse code. No Morse code. No Morse code. Okay, Seal Beach is in on. You gotta do something else. Gotta go to plan B, right? I cannot shoot approaches on a VOR that's not functional. That would be against the regulations. So just a little review. What does this pull from, this bottom part, Zoe? Let's change back to that. Oops, F. how does it know that this is OCN VOR? Where's this text coming from? We put in the nav frequency and then it checks its database. That's just from its database. Where does this come from? Balfour. Yeah. No. That comes from the Morse code. That comes from the Morse code. The ID does not come from the Morse code. Where does the ID come from? Oh no, you were this question. Yeah. Pause for a second. Where does the ID come from? Ethan? Muting or unmuting the feature that mutes the Morse code.
ID with the
Question.
How instantaneous does the check happen from the Morse code?
Yeah, my experience is 1 to 9 seconds.
Okay.
Right? I don't know. Other people? Is that less than 10 seconds?
If you do it, it'll.
Oops, that's calm.
On here. Shows up not there.
Oh, there we go.
Oh.
It has to actually listen to it, right? How often does the VOR transmit the Morse code?
30 seconds.
And
30 seconds for a meeting.
that's what's up. That's the double I candidate in the back. Every 10 seconds, it does some Morse code. The first 2 times are for the VOR, and the 3rd time is for the DME. So if you only hear the Morse every 30 seconds, that means the DME is working, but not the VOR. That is good shit right there. Well, nice. Okay. Cool. Larry, did we answer your question? Sugar and then Stuart.
Yeah. My thinking is in this programming is that the ID shows up when the audio is audible.
Correct.
So that's not necessarily showing you the muting, it's showing you the audio. So when that green ID is there, it's giving you now audio. If the green ID is not there, it's muting the audio from the net.
Let me make it a little more precise. You're not wrong, but when the ID is showing, you can hear the ID for the Morse code. If the ID is not showing, you cannot hear it is muting the Morse code. In both setups, you can hear flight service. In both setups, you can hear flight service. But if you want to make it easy, that's how you make it easy, because now the Morse code is muted. Stuart.
That was my question.
Okay, yeah. In both setups, you can hear, as long as you've got your audio panel and turned on nav, right? You can hear flight service in both setups. Yes.
So if the Morse code isn't on and the VOR isn't working, then the top SLI doesn't come up.
Correct, because this is not from a database. This is it literally listening to and decoding the Morse code. So then that would be blank.
One quick question.
Yes.
You said that white text there on the top middle is it's identifying?
Yes.
Is that also technically considered verifying?
Yes.
Okay.
However, with the asterisk. DEs have different philosophies, DEs have different familiarities with the avionics.
Put some money in the bank.
Just put some money in the bank, be prepared to just listen and just show that. You can ask on the ground, right? Like person I did, the DP I did my double I with, he knows slangs, he's fine with that, but I checked on the ground. It's like, do you want me to listen? Or if I see it ID, it's fine. He's like, it's fine, right? But we just had, who did a check ride last week with a Gail? She's one of our new DPs. She's been flying for 50-something years. I guarantee you, she's so sweet. I wish I could do all my check rides with Gail. I don't think she's as familiar with this, right? She's gonna want you to listen. She's gonna want you to listen. Just be prepared. What's that? You should ask, because I think she'd be bomb double I check ride. For sure.
Pop up on the top.
Yeah.
It's pretty much like the normal shape.
Yep. You fulfill your legal responsibilities. It has decoded the Morse code for you. Make sure that's the correct Morse code still, right? Like, is SLI the code? Should be, right? But yep, that's it. You fulfill your responsibilities. You now know more, and we're correcting some misconceptions that exist in this hangar. How do I know I'm right? And this is your homework. The G3X, the GTN 650 manual tells you this. We have there's an excerpt from in the slides here that'll show you. But if you want to verify, my CFI told me something else. The receipts are here in the GTN 650 manual. And it'll show you this I forget which chapter, you can look in the table of contents, you can verify this feature. The IT feature is literally one sentence in the manual, which is funny to me, but it's there. Cool. Tomorrow, we'll do emergencies, we'll do risk management, and then Friday, we'll do review and quiz. Y'all, thank you for your patience today. Glad you got to meet Paul. Consider 141 and have safe flights.
Thank you.
You got it. Thank you. Yes. Chiefs at Sling Pilot Academy now. Okay. Oh my God. Oh, where's the sign-in sheet? Where's the sign-in sheet go?
I just stand my ground.
Thank you. Everybody sign in?
Oh, I mean, like when I do approaches, I have to. And, yeah. It's not one. Good to know. Maybe. And the thing. Yeah, the airplane. And or. The choice. Yeah, since and. But yours is that. Yeah. Right. Just.
Yeah. Bro, you just like an hour and 20, bro. I'm like, sorry for saying, oh, bro, you also just.
Back to the upstairs.
Carmona? Jonathan Carmona? Yeah. We're talking about. You have some of it now? Like those flights, just fashions. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, dude, I was probably like these, they were like.
Maybe. Who's your primary? Jonathan. Now your primary?
Yeah, they switched it.
They did. Okay.
I thought they're not.
I don't know names.
There's like,
This, oh, okay.
Where was the sign sheet? Where's the sign sheet? Thank you.
they would take this keep them. You got a flavor in it too?
Cool. Oh, I guess that's this.